All right. Let's get into it. We will hit you with the agenda for this week's Waiver Watch episode 35. This week we have a whopping 13 waivers that we're going to talk about. We have something very interesting that you are going to want to stick around for, and this is State Farm and BVLOS shift from FCC Part 15 frequencies. This is going to have a huge impact on the industry of BVLOS, and it will give us some key insights on the direction that we all should be thinking about when we want to fly BVLOS in the future. And last but not least, we will throw some 10739, that is operations over human beings, statistics at you. So stay tuned for this week's episode. Good enough?
Yeah. Perfect.
Okay. Welcome to Waiver Watch episode 35 on July 19th, 2020. Did I get it right, Jakey? Nailed it. Got it. Only been doing this for 35 weeks. Got it figured out now. So yeah, each week we review some of the most interesting waivers granted by the FAA in the weeks prior. And I think this is where I go. As always, Jakey, hit us with the weekly waiver totals.
All right.
We're getting good at this, aren't we?
Gotta have a little bit of blooper each time. But
Yeah.
All right. This was a disappointing week. I don't know what happened at the FAA. So we only have 13 waivers. That is like half of the lowest total we've seen to date. Mm-hmm. I don't know what happened. 13. That's it. So we had 10 night waivers. Mm-hmm. One Pair Zero Safe Air Mavic 10739 Alpha waiver, and two State Farm waivers, which are complex 31, 33, 39. And we're going to hit on those more in a little bit. But
excuse me for the interruption.
Yes.
Maybe wasn't there some big FAA thing last week?
What do you mean, symposium?
Yeah.
Oh.
Would that have tied up some of the folks?
Maybe. I mean, I don't know. It's just contractors doing night waivers at the end of the day, right? So
only 10 of them too, right? They should have been able to rip that out in a morning.
Yeah, right. So I don't know.
Sorry for the distraction. I was just thinking about that. Like, what
really low.
What could have been the excuse?
Maybe it's just summer. Maybe there's like vacation,
symposium, 4th of July. I don't know.
Yeah.
Something.
Hard to say.
Okay. Anyway, sorry for the interruption. Back to our original programming.
It's all good. I mean, like last week we had talked about Eric Schwartz taking home 12% of the waivers. He had like a triple 3 in a row. Mm-hmm. State Farm has 15% of them just based on the extremely low numbers this week. So companies just dominating the weeks here. But,
yeah.
And they're kind of spread out. Nothing too significant on maps or trends here. So I think that's all we got for totals this week.
I think so. I don't think we have to dive too deep into that, right?
Nope.
So I'll kick it off. I'll transition you into number 2, which is our main conversation for the week, which is the State Farm and BVLOS shift from Part 15 frequencies. So Jakey, kick it away. Take it.
Okay, so we've talked about State Farm waivers quite a bit over the months. I mean, again, this is a program that's been working at this for years. Really advanced operations, really good example of crawl, walk, run. So these waivers have to do with their disaster post-storm assessment work that they do at the EB, SenseFly EB. And so they got 2 waivers back to back, and they're just really odd when I looked at them on the table. They are exactly the same waiver, but they go, one went to Todd Binion, one went to Dustin Helland. Hope I'm pronouncing that right. But so like 2 people in the same company with exactly the same waiver. and they, I think there's State Farm headquarters is many buildings, but they are actually in separate buildings. So it's not like these guys are down the hall from each other, but they are in the same headquarters. So it's just like really odd. So I went through and kind of compared them because these waivers also cancel like all their previous waivers, supersede them. So it's like, okay, what's different about these? Why did the FAA grant these? And there's a very interesting provision, which we noticed a little bit last week, but I think there's a conspiracy theory here a little bit. I think the FAA gave these waivers to State Farm, and State Farm did not actually ask for them. So, Brent, why don't we get into this provision a little bit? Want to read that?
So, are you talking specifically? I'm on the waiver. We're going off our guide here.
Sorry.
So
I don't know the number, but
I'll read this portion. But yes. So, when operating beyond visual line of sight of the remote pick or VOs in Class B, C, or D airspace or within the lateral boundaries of surface area Class E, designated for an airport, the command and control link equipment used for the SUAS location information, other aircraft detection and transmission and reception of the SUAS route of flight changes to avoid and remain well clear of other aircraft may not operate under, here's the part, 47 CFR Part 15 or 47 CFR Part 5. So experimental or basically your commercial off-the-shelf Wi-Fi routers, aka DJI remote controllers, EB controllers, all that good stuff. So like you said, last week we had noticed that this is a strange provision that we've never seen. And it was just like, what's going on here, right? And now it's like two more clues, right, to the direction that this is going. So go ahead and why don't you talk about a shift away from the Part 15 frequencies and give your 2 cents there.
Yeah. So Matternet's, so last week's, it did not have the controlled airspace portion. So it kind of excluded all that Bravo, Charlie, Delta, Echo stuff. This one includes it. So to me, this provision indicates a shift in FAA policy that they are not going to allow BVLOS operations with essentially unlicensed spectrum in controlled airspace anymore. They maybe had allowed it a little bit in the past, but I know this shift was starting to take place already under the IPP a little bit last year, and now this is the first time we're seeing it sort of written. So this has like a potentially huge impact. I mean, like Brent said, almost every COTS aircraft UAS out there is working on unlicensed spectrum. That's Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, essentially all the frequencies that you use day to day, your smart home, it's all unlicensed, meaning, it's kind of easily used, low power. And when you're operating in controlled airspace, I guess there's just, the FAA wants to really protect that. Lots more air traffic. And I guess maybe Brent, just what's the risk of unlicensed spectrum? Like, why do they want to get away from that maybe?
I think, okay, so what it comes down to is that, if we're going to advance U.S. operations, there needs to be like just a little bit more scrutiny on the control links, command and control links. Like this is a very important portion of making sure that your aircraft is safe to operate. So it makes sense, like they're slowly starting to kind of maybe tighten down the turnbuckles here in controlled airspace because we're expecting to see aircraft. There's a reason why it's controlled airspace in the first place. So to me, it's okay. It's going to be kind of a big bummer because now the hopes and dreams of flying DJI's equipment, BVLOS, is probably getting shattered instantly in the month of July here by these little indicators. But on the flip side, it's progress, right? So it's a good thing. And basically, once you go to licensed spectrum and now you have a little bit more control over what's happening, you can impose more restrictions and guidelines to aircraft manufacturers on what the requirements are to meet like a secured link. And with Wi-Fi, 2.4 right now that we're using, it's like, I don't even want to go there because I'm not an expert in this, but it's like susceptible to hacking and compromising the signals and all this and that. So, basically it's a good thing. It's going to increase the reliability of your aircraft that you're going to be able to maintain a control link throughout the duration of your flight, which is important. And that's probably the main goal is like, let's just say we're going to use cell phones, LTE, 5G in the future.
I was just going to ask you, what's your forecast or what links, what else is out there, right?
Well, interesting enough, I can't talk too much about some of the things I was doing in the past couple of weeks, but I happened to be flying a drone on LTE connection and happened to be certain individuals there observing what I was doing. And they didn't say a whole lot about the link. But I'm pretty sure if it was a 2.4 radio link that they probably would have said, yeah, it's probably not going to be sustainable in the future for what you intended to be doing. So I really think that that's the direction, at least one of the options. Certainly it's not going to be the only option. There's other license spectrum options out there. But think about it. The cell phone companies, Verizon, T-Mobile, Sprint, AT&T, they're all going to be excited to make a layer, that's an aviation grade layer for cell phone connectivity, LTE connectivity, 5G. I think it's a good thing. So that's my 2 cents there. I don't want to go too far off in the left-hand field with lots of speculation, but I'll turn it over to you because I've been kind of rambling a little bit here.
Yeah. No, I mean, I agree. I think C2 it's a really difficult problem. One of those like key
real quick,
BVLOS.
C2, what is it?
Yeah.
Just real quick, because we always say things, but we just need to make sure. So C2,
Command
what
and
is
control? Yeah, command and control. So
what is command? What is control?
Yeah. So, well, that's actually a good question. I mean, they're kind of the same. I guess you hear it sometimes like C3 as well, but yeah, I mean, it's the bridge between the human and the drone. You know, telling it where to go, understanding its health, its telemetry, where it is, what attitude. I mean, like 107 says, right? Attitude, position, altitude, location, etc. So, yeah, it's that critical link, and I mean, it is really important in controlled airspace. That's sort of like sacred ground for the FAA. You really got to protect it. You have commercial airlines and lots of high risk in there. So the FAA is looking for something reliable, can't be interfered with, like you said, secure. So I think LT is going to be a layer. But yeah, this is a really difficult one. I mean, frequency is pretty, just in general, the frequency band is very saturated. There's not always space available. There's been a lot of discussions, like, can we dedicate some special, frequency bands to UAS? But it's a very, very difficult problem. So a lot of smart people working on it. Hopefully more to come. But this is like you said, this is just really the shift away from that. So now, if I was manufacturer and operator looking at advanced beyond visual line of sight operations, I would be going, okay, got to get away from Part 15. At this point.
Yep. So, closing summaries.
Move
away from Part 15.
Yeah, exactly. If you want to do beyond visual line of sight operations at scale, you got to look away from Part 15. That's
2.4 is not going to do it.
Nope.
Perfect. All right. Well, transitioning to our last topic of the day, which is more along the lines of stats for waiver approvals. And we just went ahead and pulled out some stats. Jakey did some crunching here and enlighten us on what is the state of waiver approvals for operations over moving vehicles, and kind of a whole summary on 107.39 to begin with.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. This is like the state of ops over human beings, right? So, so just looking through our waiver table here. So there's and these numbers are probably not exact because the table is very dynamic, but bear with us. So there's 34 waivers approved for 107.39, and it's without analyzing every single one of them. Sometimes those include both A and B. Sometimes they only include one. Sometimes it's hard to tell just based on the waiver because it relies really heavily on their CONOP. So we can assume those are kind of both. Then there's 104 107.39 alphas only, ops over human beings. And then there's only three ops over moving vehicles. That's 107.39 Bravo only. So
and when you were going through these totals here, so 107.39, 107.39A, and 107.39B, these are what the waivers are designated on the waiver table. So when you dig deeper, there's a little bit more information, right?
Correct.
So just wanted to kind of clarify that. Like if you dig into a 10739, you might find some more information. So
yeah. And we'll hit on kind of who holds those, or well, let's maybe do it right now. It's like who actually owns those 10739s? Because this is, probably the hardest of all the three to get both. So we just pulled a list of companies out here: CNN, FLIR, Wing, Google Wing Aviation, Aerobotics, Matternet, Kazi, Zipline, Xcel Energy. I mean, these are, and almost every single one of these companies is either involved with like a Pathfinder, IPP, PSP, a test site. So these are like very big, mature companies working directly with the FAA on very sort of specific con ops. I mean, it's very, very focused in, right?
Mm-hmm. Now, what about going to the use cases approved for 10739B only? So that's much easier to do the analysis, right?
Yeah. So three. You want to cover them, Brent?
Yeah. So the first one is Boyd Instrument and Supply. Do you remember what episode we actually interviewed Roy?
Oh man, it was a long time ago.
It was still winter. It was when we were first still getting our feet wet. So go dig deep back into our YouTube and you'll see where we interview Roy Boyd. And there's actually some very interesting things that he says on how he went about getting his waiver. So anyways, he was using the Falcon 8. I think it was a TopCon version, but it's the Intel. And he was operating on a mine, and he had to provide information on how basically that drone could smash into the vehicle and that it would be okay. So speed limits, rollover protection devices in these machines, they work in open pit mines. So obviously they can handle getting loads dumped on them and everything else without, harming the passenger or the driver. So that was one. The next one is Kent Eiler. I think I'm saying it right?
Yeah.
Kent Eiler. So he has 10739B for basically two like raceways. One is in Ohio. They might be both in Ohio. But essentially he has permission to fly over demolition derbies. And, it's very prescriptive, right? There's only two locations. These people are going to be wearing helmets and whatnot, gloves probably. There's no glass in the vehicles. And they're intending on smashing into each other as well.
I mean, at some point, right?
Right.
Well,
the FAA
hitting each other anyway.
The FAA couldn't use the excuse, what happens if you cause a secondary collision because of a failure of the drone? Let's say, our primary purpose is to cause collisions, so we're okay. so probably an easy approval. Well, actually, probably not. They probably had to go back and forth a while about it. But anyways, he still has it. I think it's valid till 2022. So this, I don't know if Kent knows what he has there. It's very, very special.
Very special, yeah.
And then Aerial Ways is the last company. And I didn't do any digging on this. Jakey, did you take time to kind of look into these guys?
Yeah, so...
Go ahead with this one.
Yeah, this actually a very interesting company. They have a lot of unique waivers, some drone light show, some ops over human beings. They actually got a ops over human being with fruity shoots on an Inspire, so really unique stuff. But anyways, this one, we're presuming that it's some sort of like filming, maybe closed set or... because there's a prescription in there where they can't operate over 100 feet AGL, so very low altitude. It's a specific location. So I think it's some sort of closed set filming, but it's a little hard to tell. So
yeah.
So you.
Yeah, so I'll say a couple 2 cents here, and then you can kind of help recap. But essentially, the state of the state with operating over human beings and moving vehicles. So if you want a surefire way to operate over human beings, only people, then the way is to obtain an ASTM certified parachute and apply for a waiver for that. So 10739A. Now, if you want to get a 10739B, go to the drawing board first and think about tons of questions that the FAA will ask you and how you can make sure that, and Jakey, in our discussion yesterday, you kind of laid it out really good. So I'm going to transition this portion to you because you're going to say it best.
All right. Yeah. So, and I guess we're stealing a little bit of this from Kevin Morris's webinar, but there's two main components to 10739 is if you hit something, will you seriously injure or kill the person, whether they're in a vehicle or just standing there. So that's one way. You have to basically demonstrate that you won't injure them. So parachutes really reduce kinetic energy. That's one method. I suppose in Roy Boyd's example, the vehicle is moving, but it's essentially sheltered. I mean, it's so strong that you can't hit them, or sorry, you will hit them, but you can't hurt them. Yep. And then the other option is to demonstrate that you won't hit them. So this really involves, I get, the most obvious is like type certified aircraft, but you have to show that your aircraft operates at a certain level of reliability, that the probability of it actually coming down and hitting them is so low. So that's much more difficult to do, because the assumption on COTS aircraft, DJI, and so on is that, at least to the FAA, that the assumption is that it will crash, because there's no airworthiness, there's no type design approvals, etc. So trying to convince the FAA that your DJI product won't hit somebody is a losing battle. So those are just some of the challenges that you'll face getting these. And there's also an interesting component, I guess, from this ops of removing vehicles actually raises a level to the DOT as well. There's not a great understanding of what happens when a drone hits a moving vehicle at, say, like higher speeds. Will that distract the driver? Could you cause a chain reaction? So there's actually a level of DOT involvement on this question as well, because DOT kind of has the bigger picture. Like it may be fine to hit the vehicle, but then what happens after that? And there's just not a good understanding of that. So, the FAA and DOT being conservative, they're very cautious to kind of allow this at scale. So there's lots of challenges here. But what would you say, like the three, at the end of the day, like I think we kind of hit a couple of them, but the three options for like 10739, like how would you approach this other than para zero?
Okay. So 3 primary categories to get 10739. Number 1, get a parachute, ASTM certified, that will allow you to fly over people. Number 2, get a type certified aircraft. This will allow you to prove to the FAA that you have a reliable aircraft that won't crash into the ground. And number 3, if you're not going to do B or option 2, which is type certification, then really scope down your operations so that it's very specific and you're making it easy for the FAA to say yes. And this is the exact example for Kent Eiler, who is doing operations over moving vehicles during demolition derbies. It was very easy for the FAA to say yes because of the current situation and the con-op that Kent presented to them. So that's basically the only 3 ways you're going to get ops over human beings / moving vehicles. All right. So, that pretty much wraps it up for this week's episode of Waiver Watch. And, as always, take care.
I say. What an ending.